Hi, I'm Shashwat, and in my last couple of videos we looked at Japanese, Korean, and Mongolian. Today we'll be looking at Russian, some of its basic history, linguistic classification, as well as some of the words that have entered English from Russian, plus some general rules for those words. So, without further ado, let's begin. Russian explained by Shashwat Patel. First off, classification. The Russian language, alongside Ukrainian and Belarusian, is part of what's known as the East Slavic family. This East Slavic family is itself part of the larger Slavic family. Something to note, some people suggest that there is also a north branch of the Slavic family, but that's not really official. So there's, as of now, an east, south, and west branch of the Slavic family. Now this Slavic family itself is also part of the Balto-Slavic family, which is once again itself part of the Indo-European family, which is gargantuan not just in geographical distribution, but also in the number of words and languages it contains. Like you can see in the lower right, our language for today, Russian. Writing systems. The Russian alphabet comes from Cyrillic and has 33 letters. The Cyrillic script is used in southeastern Europe and northern Russia. Well, northern Eurasia, not Russia itself. Anyway, the Cyrillic script has about 252 users, half of whom are using the Cyrillic script for Russian. This Cyrillic script also happens to be the third official script of the EU. Cyrillic is based largely of Greek uncial, with some letters borrowed from Galgalitic. The creators of the Galgalitic script, in fact, Saints Cyril and Methodius, are the namesake for the Cyrillic alphabet, as the Cyrillic alphabet was created in large part by their followers. Something to note, when Peter the Great became Tsar of Russia, he wanted to modernize Russia by updating its infrastructure, navy, political structure, that sort of thing. But one of the things he modernized was the alphabet. And as he was modernizing the alphabet, he took on heavy influence from the Latin alphabet. For example, in the picture I used of the Russian letters, you'll notice that the last one looks like a backwards R. That's no coincidence. That was one example of the Latin influence Peter the Great put onto the Russian alphabet. Grammar. Russian is what's known as a fusional language, which, along with agglutinative languages alongside some others, make up the synthetic languages. The synthetic, along with analytic and isolating, are the three big basic types of morphological languages. Continuing onward, the main thing to know about fusional languages is, unlike agglutinative languages, which establish grammatical characteristics such as voice, tone, number, by adding bits and pieces onto the word, creating bigger words, sometimes to the point where you can say an entire sentence using just one word. Fusional languages are able to establish multiple characteristics through a single morpheme. For example, if we look at the Latin word bonus, the bone part just tells us good. It's the main meaning of the word, but that's not what we're interested in at this moment. What we're interested in at this moment is us, which is able to tell us about the gender, nominative case, and the number. As you can see, that single morpheme is able to tell us a lot more information. When it comes to things like subject, verb, object, word order, Russian is, in general, subject, verb, object. But something to note about Russian is that the subject, verb, and object can be rearranged in the sentence in order to emphasize which thing is important in that sentence. History. Until the 14th century, the ancestors of modern Russians spoke Old East Slavic, which was used in the Kievan Rus alongside the language Old Church Slavonic. It was also at this time with the Kievan Rus that some loan words came in from Old Church Slavonic and Byzantine, also called medieval, Greek. Later on, when the Mongols came and conquered Russia, This image, for example, is a painting from the Mongols' sacking of Kiev, which you can guess is pretty influential, seeing as how it was called the Kievan Rus. When Mongols came in and conquered Russia, they placed it as a vassal underneath the Golden Horde. And as Russia was placed as a vassal of the Golden Horde, it was cut off from the rest of Europe and isolated. This ceased the flow of culture significantly, and is the main reason today why Russia isn't sort of European, but at the same time isn't significantly Asian. But the part that we're talking about today is that this Mongol isolation cut Russia off from the other languages. Although at this point, the Russians didn't really interact with the Mongols either, although there were a couple Mongol military terms that came in. Continuing onwards, after the Mongols left in the late 14th century, the languages Russian and Ruthenian became distinct enough to be called different languages. The capital city soon shifted to Moscow, and words began to enter Russian from Polish. And as words were entering Russian from Polish, words that had entered Polish from other Western European languages also entered Russian. Additionally, some words were now coined of native Russian origin. Continuing onward, when Peter the Great came in and became king, trying to modernize Russia, not only did he modernize the alphabet, as I said earlier, taking on some Latin influence, but another thing he influenced was Russian vocabulary. And as he was modernizing the Russian vocabulary, he also introduced chunks and pieces from Western European languages, such as German, French, and English. For example, the Russian Navy, which, like the alphabet and vocabulary of Russia, was heavily modernized by Peter the Great. Peter the Great took many vocabulary terms from Dutch. Likewise, many terms for commerce and fashion in Russian have origins in German, French, and English. Continuing a couple centuries onward, in the 19th century, Russian reached its modern form and literature began to flourish. If we continue even more into the 20th century, after World War I, Russia became part of the Soviet Union. And in the Soviet Union, Russian was significantly cut off from other languages, at the same time expanding its influence over others. The Cold War did give it a bit of prestige and increasing its power and influence on the global stage. With the fall of the Soviet Union, however, there was a wave of new words and cultural influence from English, namely America, as exemplified through this McDonald's. Likewise, as the Soviet Union, there was a revived interest in the Eastern Orthodox Church, and as a result, many words were reintroduced from Russian's earliest forms. Russian loanwords in English. First things to note, Russian has about 500 words that are currently in English, many of whom either came in through other languages before English, or came in during the Cold War between the USSR and America. Another thing, Russian uses a different writing system, and like other languages that have different writing systems, words need to be transliterated as they cross over into English. Now, without further ado, let's get into some of the basic rules for these words. Now, when you're talking about the A sound, the A double dot sound, it's usually an A or an O. For example, the word Pascha uses an A and refers to this dessert. There's also, as an example of the O, cosmonaut. Continuing onward, the E sound is generally spelled with an I. For example, Buryat, which is the native Mongol population in Siberia, Russia, that sort of thing. Of course, there are a few words that utilize EE, although this isn't many, namely Sikach, Gusli, Chuchki, Bidarki, and Bityuk. Other than these few words, there really aren't many. All those other Russian words with E generally use an I. O, the O sound in Russian is spelled with an O. Very simple. It's pretty basic. As an example, proso, which is a type of grain. Likewise, in simplicity, U is just spelled with a U. Another example, gudak, which is the special instrument. Now we reach I, which isn't spelled how it sounds, it's spelled with an AI. And one notable example of this is balalaika. By the way, most balalaikas, the triangular instruments, aren't actually this large, I just like the picture. Of course, when it comes to I, there is the notable exception, very notable, of the common Russian name Ivan. Although something to note, this Ivan is actually the Russian equivalent of the name John in English, which is kind of unusual and at the same time interesting. Now when you reach the K sound, very simplistically, it's with a K. For example, Pika, this tiny little rodent. And if when you saw this or heard the word you thought Pikachu, you're not alone. However, there are a couple words that utilize a KH for K. There aren't many, so I can easily just list them here. Abkas, Barkan, Barukzi, Buruka, Burukuran, Dukuror, Klist, Kolkaz, Malkorka, Sovkaz, and Paska. Other than that, you don't really need to worry, as many of the Russian words have a distinct Russian feel. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, as well as learned a couple things too. So hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.